The airlock hissed open, and Deho stepped onto the stellar harvester with nothing but a worn duffel bag and a smile that showed too many teeth. Captain Vrel watched from the upper deck, his compound eyes tracking every movement the human made. This was a mistake. Vrel knew it in his thorax, where Chithar instinct lived. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous. But corporate had been clear. Every successful salvage crew in the sector had a human now. Deho looked around the cargo bay with obvious interest. His eyes were strange, forward-facing like a predator's, but soft somehow. He waved at the crew, gathered to meet him. Mireille stepped forward first, her 6 arms moving in the traditional Koran greeting. She was curious about humans in a way that made Vrel nervous. "Welcome aboard," she said, her voice carrying the musical quality of her people. "I am Mireille, navigation officer. Thanks for having me," Deho said. He pronounced her name carefully, correctly, on the first try. That was unusual. Most species needed weeks to manage Koran phonetics. Thex rumbled from his position near the bulkhead. The massive rock vein didn't move, but his crystalline body chimed softly. It meant acknowledgement, maybe approval. Hyunwoo remained behind a support pillar, all 3 of his eyes fixed on the human. The Skrit pilot had read 17 reports about human unpredictability before Deho's arrival. None of them had been reassuring. "Your quarters are on deck 3, Vrel said, his mandibles clicking with official formality. "Report to engineering bay at 0600. We have strict protocols on this vessel." "Understood, Captain." Deho's tone was respectful, but relaxed. Too relaxed. He hefted his bag and followed Mireille toward the crew quarters. 2 days passed quietly. Deho worked in engineering, kept his space clean, and ate meals with the crew without incident. He asked questions constantly. But they were good questions. Smart questions. Vrel began to wonder if corporate had been right. Then the distress beacon came in. "Freighter, dead in space," Mireille announced from her navigation station. "Sector 7, inside the Kresh radiation belt. 3 life signs." Vrel pulled up the tactical display. The radiation belt rotated slowly, creating narrow windows of survivability. "Standard procedure. We wait 6 hours for the belt to rotate. Then we go in." "Captain?" Deho's voice came from engineering, patched through the comm system. "I'm looking at the radiation patterns. There's a window in 90 minutes. We could reach them." "Negative," Vrel said firmly. "The shields cannot handle that level of radiation." "Not as they are," Deho agreed. "But I can modify them. Temporarily boost the forward array. Thin out the rear coverage. We won't need rear shields going in." Hyunwoo made a sound like escaping steam. "That is insane. Human insane." "It's calculated risk," Deho said. "The math works. I can show you." Vrel felt his mandibles tighten. This was exactly what he'd feared. Humans and their risks. "Absolutely not. We follow protocol." Silence filled the bridge. Then Mireille spoke quietly. "Captain, those are 3 lives. If we wait 6 hours, their life support might fail." Vrel looked at the chronometer, at the radiation patterns, at the cold mathematics of survival. He had been flying safe routes for 8 years. 8 years of modest profits and 0 casualties. "Deho," he said finally, "you have 80 minutes. If you cannot complete modifications, we do not go." "I'll be done in 60, the human said. The engineering bay became a storm of activity. Deho moved through it like liquid. His hands quick and sure. He rerouted power conduits, recalibrated emitters, and stripped components from non-essential systems. Mireille watched from the doorway, fascinated by the way he worked. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation. "How do you know this will work?" she asked. Deho glanced up, sweat on his forehead. "I don't. Not completely. But the math is solid, and sometimes you have to trust that 2 + 2 = 4, even when it feels like it should equal 5. That makes no sense." He grinned. Welcome to working with humans. 58 minutes later, Daeho reported ready. The stellar harvester moved into position, Hyunwoo's 3 eyes fixed on the navigation computer with absolute focus. The pilot might be nervous, but he was professional. The radiation belt appeared on the view screen like a wall of burning gold. Thex took his position at the weapons station, ready to handle any debris. Vrel's claws gripped his command chair. Entering the belt, Hyunwoo announced. Shields holding. Radiation levels. Within tolerance. Barely. The ship shuddered as waves of energy washed over the hull. Warning lights flickered. The forward view screen showed the derelict freighter tumbling slowly in the void. Life support at 60%, Mireille called out. We need to be fast. They were fast. Thex and Daeho went across in environment suits, cutting through the freighter's damaged airlock. They found 3 Quellan crew members huddled in an emergency shelter, their skin dried and cracking. The rescue took 12 minutes. The trip back through the radiation belt was worse. The modified shields were failing, pushed beyond their design limits. Daeho rerouted power 3 times, balancing the equations in real time, while radiation alarms screamed. They cleared the belt with 4% shield integrity remaining. In the cargo bay, the rescued Quellan crew gasped in the clean air. Vrel stood before Daeho, trying to find the right words. The human had disobeyed protocol, had risked the ship, had saved 3 lives and earned them salvage rights on a Class C freighter. Your modifications to the shields, Vrel said slowly. Were they truly calculated? Daeho met his compound eyes without flinching. Yes, Captain. I can show you the math. Every decision had a reason, but there was risk. There's always risk, Daeho said. The question is whether the risk is worth taking. 3 lives? A profitable salvage? I thought it was worth it. Vrel's mandibles clicked softly. It was the Chithar equivalent of a smile. Perhaps corporate was correct about humans. Dismissed. Engineer. As Daeho walked away, Mirai moved beside Vrel. He is different, she said. Yes, Vrel agreed. That is exactly what concerns me. And exactly why we needed him. Well, 1. The stellar harvester set course for the nearest station, its cargo bay carrying both survivors and salvage. In the crew quarters, Hyunwoo cautiously approached Daeho's door. After a long moment, he knocked. Come in, Daeho called. The Skrit entered, all 3 eyes blinking in sequence. I thought you were crazy, Hyunwoo admitted. Maybe you are. But thank you for what you did today. Daeho smiled that strange human smile. We're crew, he said simply. That's what crew does. Hyunwoo left, but he was thinking. Maybe humans weren't as frightening as the report suggested. Maybe they were something else entirely. Core station hung in space like a rusted crown, all jutting, docking arms and flickering lights. It was the kind of place where fortunes were made and lost in the same conversation, where traders spoke in percentages and smiled with too many teeth. Vrel had been coming here for years, and he hated it every time. The stellar harvester carried quality salvage this run. 300 tons of recyclable metals, 50 intact power cells, and a functional navigation computer from the Quellan freighter. Fair market value sat around 60,000 credits, enough to keep the crew comfortable for months. Station Master Misk waited in his office, a sprawling Quellan with gray-green skin and eyes that never blinked quite right. He gestured to the seats with one webbed hand, already looking bored. Captain Vrel, Misk said, his voice wet and smooth. Always a pleasure. Let us talk business. Vrel presented the manifest. Misk studied it for exactly 3 seconds before pushing it back across the desk. 18,000 credits. That is 30% of value, Vrel said, his mandibles clicking in agitation. That is my offer. Misk leaned back in his chair. The market is flooded with salvage this quarter. I am doing you a favor by offering anything. This was the dance. Vrel knew it. Misk knew it. They would go back and forth, and Vrel would eventually accept something around 25,000. And everyone would pretend it was fair. 25,000, Vrel countered. The power cells alone are worth 15. 20,000. Final offer. Misk's inner eyelids slid sideways. Take it, or try the vortex exchange. I hear they are only stealing 40% this month. Vrel felt his thorax tighten. 20,000 would barely cover fuel and supplies. But Misk was right about the vortex exchange. They were worse. Captain? Deho's voice came from behind him. The human had been sitting quietly in the corner, watching. Mind if I try? Every instinct told Vrel to say no. Humans were not negotiators. They were too direct, too emotional, too honest. But something in Deho's tone made him pause. You have 5 minutes, Vrel said, stepping aside. Deho moved to the chair across from Misk, but he didn't sit. Instead, he looked around the office. His eyes landed on a small tank in the corner, filled with murky water and dozens of tiny shapes moving in the darkness. Those your eggs? Deho asked. Misk's posture changed immediately. His spine went straight, and his webbed hands moved to the desk edge. What concern is that of yours? None, Deho said easily. Just noticed them. I have a nephew back home. 3 years old. Obsessed with water animals. Drives his parents crazy asking about them. The tension in Misk's shoulders eased slightly. This is my second clutch. 23 viable eggs. That's amazing, Deho said, and his voice carried genuine warmth. Misk blinked both sets of eyelids. Terrified? Sure, Deho said. He finally sat down, leaning forward like they were old friends. Kids are expensive. They need food, education, protection. The galaxy's a dangerous place. You want to give them every advantage, but there's never enough resources, never enough security. He paused. That's a lot of pressure on a father. Misk was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. The clutch pools on this station are inadequate. I must pay extra for proper nutrition supplements. The education programs are overpriced. It adds up, Deho agreed. So you need steady income, reliable partners, not one-time deals that leave you scrambling next month. Yes. Misk seemed surprised by his own admission. Deho tapped the manifest. Here's my thought. 18,000 is insulting. And you know it. 60 is more than you can move quickly. So let's do this. You give us 45,000 credits right now. That's 75% of fair value. In exchange, you get first rights to our next 3 salvage runs. Whatever we bring in, you see it first, and you get a 10% discount on the lot price. Vrel's mandibles nearly fell off his face. That was not how negotiation worked. You didn't offer the other party future deals when they were already lowballing you. But Misk was thinking. His fingers drummed on the desk, and his eyes focused on the egg tank. First rights for 3 runs? 3 runs, Deho confirmed. We're a good crew, getting better. That derelict freighter? We pulled it from inside a radiation belt. We find quality salvage because we go where others won't. Partner with us, and you'll have steady inventory while your kids are growing up. By the time they're old enough for education programs, you'll have the credits saved. You are offering me a business relationship. I'm offering you stability, Deho said. Credits now, and a reliable supply line for the future. Misk was quiet for so long that Vrel thought the deal was dead. Then, the Quelon reached across the desk with one webbed hand. 45,000. 3 runs, first rights, 10% discount. Deho shook his hand. The human custom looked strange with Quelon anatomy. But Misk didn't pull away. Pleasure doing business with you. They left the office with a credit chip worth 45,000. Vrel waited until they were back on the ship before speaking. How? He demanded. I have been negotiating with Misk for 6 years. He has never gone above 30%. One? Deho shrugged. You negotiated with his brain. I negotiated with his heart. I reller. That is meaningless human nonsense. Maybe, Deho said. But it worked. In the galley that evening, Mireille found Deho eating something that smelled vaguely toxic. That negotiation, she said, settling into a seat across from him. You appealed to his emotions. His fear for his offspring. Yeah, but you also structured a deal that benefits us. 3 runs at 90% value is better than 3 runs at 70%. Deho smiled. Emotions and math aren't opposites. People make decisions with their hearts, but they justify them with their heads. Give them both, and they'll convince themselves it was their idea all along. Mireille's head tilted. Is that what humans do? See the emotional truth beneath the surface? Some of us, Deho said. We're social creatures. We evolved reading facial expressions, tone of voice, body language. It's how we survived. We looked at each other and understood what was really being said, and you used that skill to manipulate Station Master Misk. No, Deho said firmly. I used it to understand what he actually needed. He needed security for his kids. I gave him a path to get it. That's not manipulation. That's connection. Thex rumbled from the doorway, his crystalline body catching the light. The sound meant something like agreement. Or maybe respect. Hyunwoo scuttled in behind him, carrying a datapad. The crew share from that salvage, he said, his voice excited. It is triple our normal take. Triple. We earned it, Deho said. And so did Misk. He'll make good money off our next 3 runs. Everyone wins. Vrel watched from the galley entrance. The human was eating terrible food, chatting casually with the crew. And somehow he had just earned them more credits than Vrel had managed in the past 6 months combined. Not through force or deception, but through understanding what another being truly wanted. Maybe humans weren't just unpredictable. Maybe they were something more valuable. Maybe they were the bridge between cold calculation and warm connection. The space where business became relationship, where transaction became trust. Vrel's mandibles clicked softly. He was beginning to understand why every crew wanted a human. The quantum drive died with a sound like tearing metal and a flash that lit up the engine room. Deho was thrown backward into a bulkhead, his head ringing. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in red. The ship's gentle vibration, the constant reminder of movement through space, went silent. They were dead in the void. Status report, Vrel demanded over the comm system. Deho pulled himself up, checking the diagnostic panels. The numbers made his stomach drop. Quantum drive is offline. The primary field coil shattered. We're on emergency power only. Can you repair it? Deho stared at the wreckage of the coil assembly. Pieces of the exotic matter chamber were scattered across the deck, still glowing faintly. No. Captain. This needs a full replacement. It's not something you fix. It's something you replace. Silence on the bridge. Then, Mireille's voice, carefully controlled. Nearest station is Outpost Verity. 3 weeks away. At sublight speeds. Life support? Vrel asked. 12 days at current consumption, Mireille said. 14. If we reduce power to minimal systems. The math was simple and brutal. They would die 9 days before reaching safety. The crew gathered in the galley an hour later. Nobody said much. Hyunwoo sat in the corner, all 3 eyes fixed on nothing. His breathing was too fast. Thex stood like a statue, his crystalline body dim. Even Mireille's usual grace seemed diminished. Vrel addressed them with as much calm as he could manage. I have contacted the manufacturer. They confirm the quantum drive cannot be repaired with available materials. They are sorry for our situation. That's it then, Hyunwoo said. His voice was high and thin. We die here. We do not give up. Vrel said, but his mandibles clicked uncertainly. Deho stood abruptly. The manufacturer is wrong. Everyone looked at him. The coil is destroyed, Vrel said. You confirmed this. The primary coil, yes. But quantum drives don't just work because of the coil. They work because of field generation, matter-antimatter containment, and dimensional folding. Those are all principles, not single parts. I do not understand, Mireille said. The parts are just implementations of principles, Deho said, pacing now. If I can generate the same fields using different components, create containment using alternate methods, I can build something that does the same job. The manufacturer said it is impossible, Vrel repeated. Deho's expression changed. It was something fierce and stubborn. He left the galley without another word. They heard him in the engineering bay. The sound of panels being opened. Equipment being moved. The first day, Deho barely left engineering. He appeared at mealtimes only to grab ration bars and return to work. Mireille brought him water, which he drank without looking up from his calculations. What are you doing? She asked. The water recycler has magnetic containment fields, Deho said, his voice distant. Not as strong as the quantum drive, but if I pair them with the field generators from the cargo bay gravity plating, and the entertainment system has a small antimatter battery for the holographic projectors. You are going to destroy our water recycler? Only if this works. The second day, the sounds from engineering became concerning. Metal grinding. Sparks. Once, a small explosion that made Hyunwoo whimper. Vrel went down to check, found Deho surrounded by dismantled equipment, his hands covered in grease and minor burns. This is madness, Vrel said. Deho didn't look up. Probably. You should rest. Can't. Life support is at 10 days now. His hands moved constantly, connecting components that were never designed to work together. Besides, I'm not tired, but he was. Vrel could see it in the way the human's hands shook slightly. In the redness of his eyes. Humans required sleep more than most species. Deho was running on pure stubbornness. Why are you doing this? Vrel asked. Deho finally looked up. Because you're my crew. Because Hyunwoo is terrified, and Thex has gone silent, and Mireille keeps pretending everything is fine when it's not. Because giving up means watching all of you die. And I'm not okay with that. But the manufacturer said, The manufacturer isn't here, Deho interrupted. I am. And I'm going to fix this. Or I'm going to die trying. Either way, I'm not giving up. The third day, Mireille found him in the engine room at what would have been 3 a.m. ship time. He was surrounded by a mess of components that looked nothing like a quantum drive. Wires ran everywhere. Parts from at least 8 different systems were jury-rigged together with mag clamps and welding. You need to sleep, she said gently. Soon, he promised. I'm close. The dimensional fold calculations are working. I just need to stabilize the containment matrix. And if you cannot, he was quiet for a moment. Then I'll try something else. There's always another approach. Another angle. You just have to keep looking. Humans do not accept limits, Mireille observed. Limits are starting points, Deho said. They're where the interesting work begins. The fourth day, the entire ship heard the test activation. A deep thrumming sound that made the hull vibrate. It lasted 3 seconds before cutting out with a shower of sparks. Almost. Deho's voice came over the comm. Almost. Hyunwoo approached Vrel on the bridge. Captain, should we prepare for the end? Vrel looked at the chronometer. 8 days of life support remained. Not yet, he said. The human is still working, but what he is attempting is impossible. He does not seem to care. Day 5. Deho emerged from engineering, his face pale, his movements shaky. He drank an entire container of water, ate 2 ration bars, and slept for 4 hours. Then he went back to work. Day 6. 7 days of life support left. The crew was getting sluggish as the air recyclers struggled. Thex and Mireille helped Deho lift a section of cargo bay decking to access the gravity plating beneath. "This will affect our artificial gravity," Thex rumbled. "Better to float than die," Deho said. Day 7. The hybrid drive sat in the engine room, an ugly mass of incompatible parts that should not work together. Deho ran one more calculation, checked one more connection, and then looked at Vrel. "Ready to test," he said. The crew gathered on the bridge. Everyone except Deho, who remained in engineering. "Starting initialization sequence," he announced. "If this goes wrong, it might tear a hole in space-time. So, sorry, in advance." "Very reassuring," Hyunwoo muttered. The thrumming sound began again. This time, it didn't stop. It grew louder, deeper, until the entire ship vibrated in harmony. The lights flickered. The view screen showed something impossible. Space beginning to fold around them. "We have field generation," Mireille called out, her voice excited. "Containment is holding. Dimensional fold is stable." The stellar harvester lurched forward. Not fast, not elegant, but moving. Moving through quantum space, with a drive built from spare parts and human stubbornness. Deho's voice came over the comm, exhausted but triumphant. "We're not going to die today." The journey to Outpost Verity took 8 days instead of 3 weeks. The hybrid drive shook, whined, and cut out twice. But Deho kept it running. When they finally docked, he collapsed in the airlock and slept for 16 hours straight. Vrel stood over the hybrid drive with a station engineer, who examined it with something like horror. "This should not function," the engineer said. "These components are incompatible. The field harmonics alone should have torn the ship apart." "But it works," Vrel said. "It works," the engineer agreed, sounding offended by the fact. Later, in the medbay, Vrel found Deho awake and recovering. Deho smiled weakly. "Good thing I didn't know that. You nearly killed yourself," Vrel said. 72 hours with minimal sleep. "Why push so hard?" "Because impossible isn't real," Deho said. "It's just what people call something before someone figures it out. Every impossible thing in history was impossible, right up until someone did it anyway." Vrel's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "The manufacturer will want to study your design. They can have it," Deho said. "But they should know it only works because I didn't know it couldn't." That night, the crew shared a meal in the galley. Hyunwoo sat next to Deho without trembling. Thex's body glowed bright. Mireille touched the human's shoulder gently with one of her 6 hands. "You saved us," she said simply. "We saved us," Deho corrected. "You helped move equipment." Thex kept the power systems balanced. Hyunwoo monitored life support. "We're a crew," but they all knew the truth. The human had looked at certain death and refused to accept it, had torn apart their ship and rebuilt it into something impossible. That was why every crew wanted a human. Not because they followed the rules, but because when the rules said everyone would die, humans rewrote the rules instead. The proximity alarm started screaming before anyone could react. 3 ships appeared on the sensors, coming out of quantum space in a coordinated attack pattern. Mireille barely had time to identify them before the first impact shook the stellar harvester. "Krovik Raiders," she announced, her 6 hands flying across the navigation controls. "They are jamming our communications and targeting our engines." Vrel's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Evasive maneuvers. Hyunwoo, get us out of here." "Trying." The Skrit's 3 eyes were wide with panic as he pushed the ship into a hard turn. Another impact. The lights flickered. Thex was already at the weapons station, but his rumbling voice carried defeat. "They are shielded. Our weapons cannot penetrate. Then we run," Vrel decided. But even as he said it, the engine indicators went red. The 3rd Krovik ship had landed a perfect shot. They were dead, in space. The boarding klaxon sounded. Metal groaned as magnetic clamps attached to the hull. Then, the terrible sound of cutting torches. "They are coming through the cargo bay," Mireille said quietly. Thex grabbed his shock staff and moved to the corridor. "I will hold them. You will die," Vrel said. But Thex was already gone. The captain looked at the rest of his crew. At Mireille, with her graceful limbs. At Hyunwoo trembling behind his console. At Daeho, who stood very still, his face expressionless. "Kroviks take no prisoners," Vrel said. "We could surrender, but they'll sell us as slaves," Daeho finished. His voice was flat. "I've read about them." The sound of fighting echoed through the ship. Thex's roar, energy weapons firing, then a crash, and silence. "Thex is down," Mireille whispered. Heavy footsteps approached. 6 Krovik warriors stomped into the bridge, each one 2 meters of armored muscle. Their leader, identified by the red marks on his helmet, pointed a plasma rifle at Vrel. "This ship is claimed," the Krovik announced. "You are cargo now." Vrel's mandibles sagged in defeat. "I surrender my crew." "Captain, no," Mireille started to say, but one of the Kroviks grabbed her roughly. She cried out as her left arm twisted at a wrong angle. Something in the air changed. Daeho had been standing still near the engineering console. Now he moved. It wasn't the casual movement they were used to. This was different. Precise. Fast. His hand grabbed a plasma cutter from the tool rack. Before the nearest Krovik could react, Daeho drove it into the gap between his helmet and chest armor. The warrior made a surprised sound and dropped. The bridge exploded into chaos. Daeho didn't fight like other species fought. There was no honor in it. No fair engagement. He used everything. Tools became weapons. Walls became leverage. He targeted joints, weak points, anywhere the armor was thin. A Krovik swung at him with a massive fist. Daeho ducked under it, kicked the warrior's knee backward with a terrible crack, and hit him in the throat with the edge of his hand. The Krovik fell, choking. "To the escape pods!" Daeho shouted at the crew. His voice was nothing like his usual friendly tone. This was command. "Now!" Vrel hesitated. "We cannot leave you. Go!" Daeho roared. And something in his expression made Vrel's instincts scream to obey. The captain grabbed Hyunwoo and Mireille, dragging them toward the corridor. 3 Kroviks remained on the bridge. They looked at the human, at their 2 fallen comrades, and their body language shifted. Not attacking. Evaluating. The leader raised his rifle. Daeho was already moving, diving behind a console as plasma bolts scorched the air where he had been. He came up near the environmental controls and hit the emergency vent. The bridge atmosphere began venting into space. The Krovik's suits would protect them. Daeho had maybe 30 seconds before his lungs failed. But 30 seconds was enough. He used the tool rack as a projectile, launching it at the Krovik leader. The warrior blocked it, but Daeho was already there. Inside the guard, driving a plasma cutter up and into the suit's power pack. The suit locked up, servos freezing. The other 2 Kroviks charged him together. Daeho grabbed a loose panel from the damaged console and used it as a shield, deflecting a plasma bolt back at one of the warriors. The shot burned through the Krovik's faceplate. He went down screaming. The last Krovik hesitated. Just for a moment, uncertainty in the face of this small human who fought like a demon. Daeho didn't hesitate. He sealed the bridge, emergency override, cutting off the atmosphere vent, and then moved to the tactical console. His fingers flew over the controls. The ship's defensive turrets, offline during the attack, suddenly came back online. "You're done," Daeho said. His voice was cold. "Tell your ships to leave, or I start shooting." The Krovik looked at his dead and dying comrades. At this human, who had taken down 5 warriors in under 3 minutes. At the defensive turrets, now tracking the Krovik ships outside. "You are insane," the warrior said. "No," Daeho replied. "I'm human. There's a difference. The Krovik backed toward the cargo bay. Dayho followed, weapon ready, until the warrior retreated onto his ship. The magnetic clamps released. The 3 Krovik vessels pulled away and jumped to quantum space, leaving the stellar harvester behind. Dayho waited until they were gone before he let the weapon drop. His hands were shaking. He walked to where Thex lay in the corridor. The massive rock vein was cracked but alive, his body chiming weakly. "Thex," Dayho said, his voice breaking. "Hey buddy, stay with me." The crew emerged from the escape pod bay. Mireille rushed to Thex with medical supplies. Hyunwoo stared at the bodies on the bridge with all 3 eyes. Vrel approached Dayho slowly. "Reese. Entai. Reese. Entai. Reese. What were you?" the captain asked. Dayho sat down heavily, exhaustion and adrenaline crash hitting him at once. "Just a human," he said quietly. "We're good at fighting. Really good. We've been doing it to each other for thousands of years. Perfecting it. Finding every weak point, every advantage, every way to survive, when survival shouldn't be possible. You killed them without hesitation," Vrel said, not quite accusing. "They hurt Mireille. They hurt Thex. They were going to enslave all of you." Dayho looked up, and his eyes were haunted. "I'm sorry you had to see that. Sorry you had to know that humans can. That I can." "That. Can what?" Mireille asked, setting down her medical supplies. "Save us? Fight when we could not? Be violent," Dayho said. "Be dangerous. There's a reason a lot of species are afraid of humans. We're peaceful until we're not. And when we're not." He trailed off, looking at his hands. They were covered in burns and bruises. Hyunwoo surprised everyone by approaching Dayho. The Skrit reached out one trembling limb and touched the human's shoulder. "I am glad," he said softly, "that you are dangerous for us. Not to us." Thex rumbled from the floor. The sound was weak but definite. "Agreement. Gratitude. The Kroviks will report this," Vrel said, sitting down next to Dayho. "They will tell others that this ship has a human. Some will avoid us, and some will try harder," Dayho said. "I'm sorry. I've made you a target." "No," Vrel said firmly. "You made us survivors. There is a difference." They spent the next hours repairing the ship, treating wounds, cleaning up the bridge. Nobody talked much. They were all processing what they had seen. The friendly engineer who laughed at jokes and fixed things with smile had become something else when his crew was threatened. That night, Mireille found Dayho in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "Does it bother you?" she asked. "What you did?" "Yes," Dayho said immediately. "It should bother me. The day it doesn't, I'm not human anymore. You protected us. I know, and I'd do it again. But that doesn't mean I have to like what I'm capable of." He was quiet for a moment. "Humans are contradictions. We can be gentle and violent, kind and cruel. We build civilizations and tear them down. And today my worst instincts kept my crew alive. So, I'll carry that weight. But I'll carry it gladly, if it means you're all safe." Mireille wrapped one arm around his shoulders. "You are a good human, Dayho." He smiled, but it was tired. "Thanks. I'm trying to be." Later, Vrel stood on the bridge alone, looking at the tactical console Dayho had used to drive off the Kroviks. The manufacturer specifications said those turrets needed 3 minutes to power up. Dayho had done it in 30 seconds. Impossible. Like everything else about humans, but Vrel understood now. Humans were valuable not because they were safe. They were valuable because when safety failed, when protocols broke down, when death was certain, humans became something more. They became exactly what their crew needed them to be, even if it cost them something to do it. 3 months after the Krovik attack, the Stellar Harvester docked at Port Primus. It was the biggest station in the sector. A massive structure that housed thousands of ships and tens of thousands of crew members. Word traveled fast in places like this, and the story of the salvage ship with the human who fought off raiders had traveled faster than most. Daeho barely made it off the ship before the offers started coming. The first was from Captain Torval, a prestigious Koran who ran a luxury transport. "Triple your current salary," Torval said, her multiple arms gesturing elegantly. "Private quarters, full medical coverage, access to the finest dining facilities in the sector." The second came from a military contractor. "We need someone who can think under pressure," the recruiter said. "Defense work, serious credits, serious prestige." By the end of the first day, Daeho had 7 offers, each one better than the last. Better ships, better pay, better everything. Vrel watched it happen from a distance. He had known this moment would come eventually. Humans were too valuable, too capable. Of course, other crews would want Daeho. Better crews. More successful crews. "He is going to leave," Hyunwoo said quietly, all 3 eyes tracking the human as he spoke with another captain. "Of course he is," Vrel said. His mandibles clicked with resignation. "It is the logical choice." Mireille said nothing, but her 6 arms moved in small, agitated patterns. They had become comfortable. That was the problem. They had forgotten that crew members were assets, and valuable assets got traded to higher bidders. That evening, Vrel called a crew meeting in the galley. He said, "Daeho has received multiple offers for better positions." "Celebrate?" Hyunwoo's voice was small. "It is what professionals do," Vrel said, trying to believe it himself. Mireille stood up. "I will prepare food. Human food." She paused. "I have been practicing." They spent the next hours preparing what they hoped was a proper farewell dinner. Mireille attempted something called pasta, based on recipes she had researched. It came out lumpy and slightly purple. But she tried. Hyunwoo carved a small crystal figure using techniques Thex had taught him. It was supposed to be Daeho, though it looked more like a blob with arms. Thex contributed something from his people's tradition. A song. Rockvein songs were deep vibrations that resonated in the chest. This one spoke of gratitude and parting ways. When Daeho entered the galley, he stopped. The table was set. Badly prepared food steamed in the center. His crew stood around it, trying to smile. "What is this?" he asked. "A farewell dinner," Vrel said. "We know you have received better offers. We wanted to properly acknowledge your departure." Something complicated passed across Daeho's face. "I see." They sat. They ate the purple pasta, which was terrible. Nobody mentioned how terrible it was. Mireille talked about the new navigation charts she had been studying. Hyunwoo discussed fuel efficiency improvements. Thex chimed softly about the latest salvage prospects. Nobody talked about Daeho leaving. Finally, Hyunwoo pushed forward the crystal carving. Daeho picked it up carefully. He turned it over in his hands, examining it from every angle. "This is really good, Hyunwoo. You've been practicing." "Thex has been teaching me," Hyunwoo's voice cracked. "He is very patient." Daeho set the crystal down gently. Then he laughed. Not a cruel laugh. A warm, genuine, slightly exasperated laugh. "What is funny?" Vrel demanded, his mandibles clicking with confusion. "You are," Daeho said. "All of you. You threw me a farewell dinner without asking if I'm actually leaving." Silence around the table. "You are not leaving?" Mireille asked carefully. "No," Daeho said. "I turned down all 7 offers this morning." "But they offered triple salary," Vrel said. "Better ships. Better opportunities." "They did," Daeho agreed. He picked up the crystal carving again. "And I told them I wasn't interested." Man. Why?" The question came from all of them, in different forms, but with the same confusion. Daeho was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain. "When I was a kid," he finally said, "my father told me something. He said, 'Home isn't a place you find. It's something you build, with people who matter.' He looked around the table. At each of them. I've been on this ship for 5 months. In that time, Hyun-woo stopped being afraid of me. We talk now. He tells me jokes from his homeworld, and they're terrible. But he laughs so hard when he tells them that I laugh too. Hyun-woo's eyes brightened. My jokes are not terrible. They really are. Daeho said warmly. Thex taught me 17 words in Rockvein. Do you know how long it takes to learn even one word in Rockvein? It took me 3 weeks just to understand the concept of greeting crystals. But he was patient. He never got frustrated. Thex rumbled. It meant something like humble embarrassment. Mireille shares her star charts with me, Daeho continued. Not just for work. She shows me beautiful nebulas and distant galaxies, and tells me the stories her people have about them. She's trying to learn human cooking to make me feel at home. The pasta is bad, Mireille admitted quietly. The pasta is terrible, Daeho agreed, smiling. But you made it anyway. And Captain, he looked at Vrel. You took a chance on me when you didn't have to. Corporate pushed you to hire a human, but you could have picked anyone. You picked me, and when I suggested crazy plans, when I broke protocols, when I turned your ship into a weapon, you trusted me. You have earned that trust, Vrel said. Maybe. But you gave it before I earned it. That matters. Daeho pushed the purple pasta around his plate. Those other offers? Better ships? Better pay? Better everything. Except the one thing that actually matters. Which is? Mireille asked. You. Daeho said simply. This crew. These people. You're not just colleagues. You're not just crew members assigned to the same ship. You're family. Why? 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 The word hung in the air. Family. It didn't translate perfectly to most species' languages. The concept was different for everyone, but the feeling behind it was universal. Humans have this saying, Daeho continued. Home is where the heart is. It sounds simple, but it's true. My heart isn't on some fancy luxury transport. It's not on a military contractor's flagship. It's here, with the crew that makes terrible pasta and carves little blob statues and teaches me words in impossible languages. But the opportunities, Vrel said weakly. Your career advancement will happen or won't happen, Daeho interrupted. I'm not interested in climbing some corporate ladder. I'm interested in being somewhere I matter. Somewhere I'm not just a human they hired because humans are valuable. I want to be somewhere they know my name, where they know I take my coffee cold, and I hum when I work. And I'm terrified of Quellan jellyfish, because I got stung by one when I was 6. You are afraid of jellyfish? Hyun-woo asked, momentarily distracted. Completely terrified, Daeho admitted. Which I've never told anyone, except all of you just now. Mireille reached across the table with one of her 6 hands. Daeho took it. We do not want you to leave, she said. But we thought you would choose the logical option. Logic isn't everything, Daeho said. Sometimes the heart knows things logic can't calculate. And my heart says, I'm staying. Thex's body began to glow brighter. It was the Rockvein expression of joy. Hyun-woo made a sound like chittering laughter. Mireille's hands moved in complex patterns that meant relief and happiness. Vrel was quiet. Then his mandibles clicked in the Chithar version of a smile. I submitted a formal request to corporate 3 weeks ago, he admitted, to make you permanent chief engineer. They approved it yesterday. You knew I might leave. But you asked for me to be permanent anyway? Daeho asked. I had hope, Vrel said. Perhaps I learned that from you. Humans are good at hope. They finished the terrible dinner together. They talked about the next salvage run, about repairs the ship needed, about Hyun-woo's terrible jokes and Thex's crystal carving lessons. They talked like a crew that would be together tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Later, Daeho stood in the observation deck, looking out at Port Primus. Somewhere out there were 7 better ships. 7 better opportunities, 7 logical choices. And here, on the Stellar Harvester, was his crew, his family, the illogical choice that felt exactly right. Mireille joined him at the window. "The other captains will not understand," she said. "They will think you are foolish." "They will. Let them," Deho said. "They're looking for a human, because humans are valuable assets. You wanted me because I'm Deho. There's a difference." "Is that why every race wants a human in their crew?" Mireille asked. "Because humans understand the difference between asset and family?" "Maybe," Deho said. "Or maybe it's because humans know that the best things in life aren't the ones that make sense on paper. They're the ones that make sense in here." He tapped his chest. The Stellar Harvester launched from Port Primus the next morning. In stations across the sector, other captains reviewed human applications, hoping to find their own Deho. Some would succeed. Some would treat humans as valuable tools and wonder why they never quite fit. But on one mid-tier salvage vessel, flying toward questionable salvage in dangerous territory, a crew worked together like they were supposed to. Like family. And in the engineering bay, a human engineer hummed while he worked, completely content to be exactly where he belonged. This was why every race wanted a human in their crew. Not for what humans could do, but for what humans could become when they found people worth staying for. Home.